All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Global Fashion Exchange live event for the United Nations World Oceans Day programming. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. My name is Emilie McGlone, and I am the director of Peace Boat US and also a Global Fashion Exchange ambassador. So today we are going to be joining Alden Wicker live here on Instagram talking about sustainable fashion. Super excited to be here with everyone today. Thank you for joining us. We're good now. And we've been doing these events, as you know, as a series of Fashion for Oceans. This is part of the United Nations World Oceans Day events, continuing now into July. And we've got Alden Wicker here with us. Hi, Alden.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. It's so wonderful to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here, especially with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, Alden and I have been working together in the sustainable fashion movement for many years now in New York City and different places around the world. So it's exciting to be together. Even though we're not both in New York right now, we can connect online.
Yeah.
So Alden is a sustainable fashion expert and the founder of EcoCult. And Alden, today we're going to be talking about how sustainable fashion can make a positive impact on the oceans. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your work and what EcoCult does?
Sure. So I'm a sustainable fashion journalist. I freelance, I write for a bunch of different publications, but I also have a website called ecocult.com, which is a leading platform for information on how to be a more sustainable and ethical designer as well as fashion consumer. And so I'm always putting up explainers and shopping guides. And one thing that I've really been interested in lately is fashion made from ocean plastic, as well as microfiber pollution and all of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I do want to give a shout out to my new contributor, Azra Sudetic, who did an explainer on fashion made from ocean plastic. So a lot of what I'll be talking about today is pulling from some of the research that she did for ecocult.com. So you can go to the website and you can check out the entire story, but I'm gonna expand on that and build on that for our talk today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, I'm really excited to hear what we're going to talk about this afternoon. We are doing this as part of a series that is with the United Nations World Oceans Day. And this year, on June 8th, just last month, 1 month ago exactly, we celebrated the United Nations World Oceans Day events with the theme of innovation for a sustainable ocean. And when we talk about innovation, we know the fashion industry is right at the forefront, always coming up with new ideas, coming up with new lines and new products that can really be more sustainable. But we also know that the fashion industry pollutes a lot. So we want to find the positive side in how we can make a difference. So let's talk about innovation and sustainability. What are some of the things you've seen right now that you think you can highlight as far as brands or designers that are really making a positive impact?
Sure. So there are some nonprofits as well as brands that have been working together to take plastic out of the ocean and make it valuable by putting it into fashion. So the two biggest players that are doing this are called EcoNil and Reprieve. And as a consumer, you might not have heard of them, but if you go to almost any sustainable bathing suits website and you look at what it's made out of, it's probably made out of EcoNil, which is a nylon that's made from recycled ocean plastic. There's also Reprieve, which does recycled polyester. So you'll find it in yoga leggings and other athletic gear, as well as some mainstream fashion, like everyday fashion, if you're looking for polyester clothing. So those are two big, and those are for-profit brands, but they source from nonprofits like EcoNil sources from Healthy Seas. So they get abandoned fishing nets, which are incredibly dangerous for whales, sea turtles, other sea life. So these nylon fishing nets are abandoned, they're left in the ocean, and then of course they continue to do their job, which is to catch sea life. And so Healthy Seas cleans up these, takes these out of the ocean, and then sends them on to the parent company of EcoNil in Italy, and turns them into this this really nice, like high-end Italian-made fiber.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool and very popular. Very
Yeah.
popular. And then other ones that there's Sequel, which is an organization that collects plastic from the oceans, and they've worked with IKEA and Gaunt and Jeff Wolfskin on capsule collections. And then you have other smaller brands that use ocean plastic, like Girlfriend Collective, that you've probably heard of, and again, like a lot of different swimwear brands. And then, of course, a lot of people have heard of Parley for the Oceans because they've worked with Adidas to make these sneakers out of, again, ocean plastic. And apparently, the initial run of 7,000 shoes sold out immediately. So this gets people really excited. And it's really like some really, really cool initiatives. And then finally, there's EcoAlf. They've sent out 3,000 fishermen who, like usually when fishermen, they throw their nets out, they pull in fish, and then they pick all of this plastic out of the nets, and they don't have room for it on their boats, so they throw it right back in the ocean.
That's such a waste. Yeah.
Yeah. So EcoNil is saying like, no, 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 keep it. We'll give you these barrels and stuff. Put it in the barrels, bring it back, and we'll take care of it, so that you don't have that terrible feeling of throwing the plastic right back in the ocean from whence it came. So that's another one. And then finally, YKK has worked with, that's the zipper manufacturer, has worked with, they've worked with Ocean Works to do some ocean plastic zippers. So lots of exciting things happening there.
No, that's so great. And like you mentioned, Parley for the Oceans, and they're also one of our partners for the United Nations World Oceans Day.
Cool.
And it just shows you that the consumer power can really make such a positive difference. If we start putting our money where our mouth is, really making that difference. If we're talking about sustainability, let's put our money there too. And I think Parley is such a great example of that. So that's really exciting. And EcoAlf as well. We did a global fashion exchange interview with them at the United Nations Climate Change Conference. And it's just exciting to see more and more of our fashion partners getting involved in these global conferences, because the more they're on that main stage and highlight these issues, hopefully we can garnish more support and get it moving, right?
Yeah.
So let's think about what you are working on right now, and what are some of the brands and highlighted, things that you would like to talk about and share with us, and thinking about how sustainability and fashion can really make a difference.
Yeah, so I think one thing that's really important to point out is there are some challenges to scaling this up. So, for example, all the things that I've talked about, they tend to be focused on developed countries, right? And which is great, and it's sort of like a good initial first step, right? Because Italy makes some of the best textiles in the world. There's also some projects in Spain. Some of these places that go directly into the ocean and pull out the plastic, they tend to do so off of developed countries, the coastline of developed countries. So that's all really great. It's definitely a proof of concept, like you said. It proves that this works. Brands are excited, consumers are excited, all of those things. However, one of the things, like someone said earlier, that there's some projects in Latin America, specifically Colombia, to collect plastic. And that's actually what I would really like to see the next step be moving forward in terms of the fashion industry, because I forget the exact numbers, but most of the plastic that comes into the ocean is from developing countries, because as you may know, Emily, they have less developed waste collection systems. I mean, you've traveled all the way around the world. Like, where are some countries where you would like to see more plastic collected from coastlines? What are some places that you think could really benefit from getting this collection?
Oh, there's so many places. I mean, so, with our work with Peace Boat, we travel around the world in 3 months. We visit about 20 different countries. And in every country, at every port, you can always see that there's a lot of extra waste. And the hardest hit areas, like you mentioned, are Latin America, also a lot of coastlines in Africa, even the Mediterranean. For me, always Guatemala has been a major area when we visit Puerto Quetzal. Also visiting African regions in Namibia, South Africa, I spent also a month in Ghana, and Ghana was one of the places I saw the most waste. And I know you're also working on some projects there. I'm really interested in projects in Ghana. Also, I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm curious, like when you were there, you probably saw plastic waste, but you also probably saw fashion waste
A lot
there
of
because
waste, yes,
yeah,
for sure.
and that so when the fashion so when we donate fashion to places, it goes through the system. It's like all these little tributaries going to a river, and it flows. So there's some places it goes off, it gets pulled off. So like you can buy like some of it's sold at Goodwill, and then what's not sold is sent to a textile recycler. Some of that is sent to be made into rags. A, like probably a quarter up to a 40% of that is actually to developing countries where it's resold to people there for a really affordable price. And also it does support a lot of jobs and entrepreneurship in these countries. The problem is that, for example, in the largest secondhand market in Ghana, it's estimated the OR Foundation, which does work on the secondhand industry there, estimates that 40% of the clothing that's shipped to this market is immediately offloaded and sent to the landfill. Now, their landfill there is completely overwhelmed. It's not necessarily lined properly. It's near rivers and coastlines, so there's a lot of leakage, not just of like, chemicals and toxins, but actual clothing, including synthetic clothing, which includes plastic, but also natural clothing that just flows right into the ocean there. So
Sure.
that's a really big problem, and that's one of the ways that fashion contributes to ocean plastic and ocean waste and microfiber pollution. The solution there is there's a few different solutions. So I've been writing recently about, I wrote an article for EcoCult that rounded up Black-owned fashion brands that are ethically made in Africa. Some of them are headquartered in the U.S., some of them are headquartered in on the continent, but a lot of them are based in Ghana. There's so much creativity in Ghana, and one of the things that a lot of them are doing is taking fashion waste and upcycling it into new, higher value, incredibly creative, really fresh looking fashion that you can buy in Ghana, or you can buy directly from them and have it and like wear it over here. So it's really, really beautiful. And so, oh, good, the OR is here. Actually, that's so great that they're here. Um, so that's one solution. That is a very like handcrafted solution that is really important. Another solution might be to like once they have proof of concept that you can take. They're starting to do more clothing to clothing recycling. It's very much in its infancy. It's very much like being piloted and tested. It's not commercially available yet. So, but when that happens, I am a very strong advocate of when they do build these large scale factories where you can bang and get out new polyester textiles, that they should be put in places like Ghana that are receiving all of this fashion waste already. Because some people say like, where do I donate my clothes so that they don't end up in Africa? And my answer is always like, it's really like once you relinquish control of your clothing, it's probably it's going to go where it's going to go. And so the problem, and also like I said, it does support some entrepreneurship and jobs there, or else they wouldn't buy it, right? Like they are buying these shipping containers and reselling them, but there should be a place where they should be able to take the stuff that right now is worthless and going to the landfill, be able to product in their own country. So and like it would create jobs. It would be really good for the environment. So, and also ocean plastic to textile system, and wouldn't benefit as much from this. I can't hear you, Emily. Am I the only one who can't hear? No. I can't hear, and I don't know why. From people to let me know that they can hear me. Can people hear me? Oh no, technical difficulties. Okay, okay, great. Emily, we can't hear you. Are you muted? Or did your do that to figure out what's going on here? I can keep talking about a little bit of the other things um, that I'm excited about in terms of innovation, in terms of fashion. Um, so we were talking a little bit about fashion waste and recycling, and I would love for that also to be situated in terms of collecting plastic from the oceans. But um, some challenges that we will need to overcome in terms of getting this scaled up is the fact that I don't think a lot of people know this, but when we're talking about in terms of getting this scaled up is the fact that I don't think a lot of people know this, but when we're talking about fashion made from ocean plastic, scaled up, is the fact that I don't think a lot of people know this, but when we're talking about fashion made from ocean plastic, scaled up, is the fact that I don't think a lot of people know this, but when we're talking about fashion made from ocean plastic, scaled up, is the fact that I don't think a lot of people know this, but when we're talking about fashion made from ocean plastic, scaled up, is the fact that
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Global Fashion Exchange Instagram Live. We are here celebrating once again the United Nations World Oceans Day events and continuing our conversation with Alden Wicker, who's going to be joining us here very soon, about how sustainability and fashion are connected and how we can work with plastic pollution in the ocean. So we're going to be talking a little bit about all the different things that the fashion industry is doing to make a positive difference and looking at it from that aspect. Hi, Alden. Thank you so much for joining
hi.
us. All right, we are back live on Instagram talking again about the United Nations World Oceans Day, innovation for a sustainable ocean, and all the wonderful things that we can do as a fashion industry to make a positive difference.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, I'm really excited to talk about this, and I think we wanted to save this video, so we should go back over some of the stuff we talked about before, right?
That's right. Yeah, we've been kind of planning and talking about, but we'll just kind of start with, first of all, tell us a little bit about your work with EcoCult and what you've been working on right now.
Sure. So I'm the founder. I'm a freelance journalist, sustainable fashion journalist, and the founder of EcoCult.com. And it's a platform that shares information about how to be a better designer, fashion professional, and consumer. So so I was really excited to talk about this because we had an article recently. You can find it at ecocult.com, and it's by our new contributor, Azra Sudetic, and it's about fashion made from ocean plastic. So I'm leaning heavily on a lot of the research she did. So credit goes to her for a lot of what I'm about to talk about. But yeah, let's get into it.
All right, so we are talking about sustainability and the oceans. And as we know, this year's theme was Innovation for a Sustainable Ocean. And we're continuing this as part of a series with Global Fashion Exchange, with Eco Shaker and Peaceboat US, bringing in different speakers on all kinds of various platforms to really talk about, first of all, the crisis with the fashion industry in the oceans and also how we can make a difference. So, what are some of the brands that you've seen that are really making a positive difference right now with plastic pollution and also just with innovation?
Yeah, so I actually I had heard of a lot of these brands, but I was surprised by how many initiatives are going on right now to turn ocean plastic into new fashion. So you might have heard of EcoNil. I would say 90% of the sustainable swimsuit brands out there are using EcoNil, which is a nylon made from recycled ghost nets that are collected from healthy seas. So abandoned fishing nets are a huge problem. They're left in the ocean. They don't degrade the way natural fishing nets do, and they continue to do their job, which is trap and entangle sea life. They're really bad for sea turtles. They're really bad for whales. They're bad for everyone. So Healthy Seas grabs these nets, sends them to Italy, where they're made into EcoNil, which is like a really high-end synthetic nylon fiber. So then you also have Sequel, which goes out on these expeditions and collects ocean plastic. And they've worked with IKEA, Gaunt, Jack Wolfskin, and various other brands to create capsule collections from it. You'll see everyone's probably heard of Parley for the Oceans, which works with Adidas to turn ocean plastic into sneakers. And that initial collaboration of 7,000 sneakers sold out in like instantly. So clearly there's like an appetite for this really beautiful solution, and like sort of being part of the solution as a consumer, with this fashion. And then there's EcoAlf. And so what they've done is, so I was talking to the founder and he was telling me about how these go out from Spain, they throw their net in, they pull everything back in, and there's some fish and some plastic. And usually, what are they going to do with this plastic? They take it out, they dump it right back in the water. It's a huge problem. And so he said, like, no, 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 please keep it. We will take it from you. So they have barrels, they fill them with plastic, and then they pass it off to EcoAlf, and EcoAlf turns this plastic into some of their products. So it's this like really beautiful circular economy where you could take things that you give them value. And when you give a material value, then people start picking it up again, instead of what it is now, which is sort of valueless and left to be eaten by sea creatures. So there's a lot of really cool initiatives. Some of them are larger than others, and hopefully they're going to grow.
That's so incredible. And I totally love what Parley is doing. Parley for the Oceans is also one of our partners for the United Nations World Oceans Day. They've been working so hard on collecting plastics, and they're really making a difference with not only their tennis shoes, but all kinds of other designs. So we hope that, consumer power can really help make a difference in choosing brands that obviously represent what we believe in. And then by purchasing power, we can help make that difference and push it forward. So that also goes together with EcoAlf. We actually did an interview with them as part of Global Fashion Exchange at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP25 in Madrid. And it was just really amazing to see so many fashion brands taking the main stage and really putting out there how to make a difference and giving solutions, which is what we're here to talk about today. So thank you for highlighting those amazing brands. And then we're also right now, looking at so many challenges that are being faced, not only just for the oceans, but we are entering the week of the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development and thinking about the Sustainable Development Goals in general. So what are some of the things that you think we are able to do for sustainability in the fashion industry, or what are some great examples of things that you want to highlight today?
Sure. So I think some really good examples, we're talking about sustainable development, right? Like thinking about how sustainability ties into not just the environment, but also people and humans. I think one of the things that is really cool and creative that's going on right now is so so let me back up a little bit and talk about one of the other ways that fashion um, can does currently pollute the ocean, but then also can be flipped around to address the own problem. So when we donate clothing here in the United States or in Europe, it flows into a system, and some of it's resold, in our city. Some of it is downcycled. A very tiny percent is recycled, but a large chunk of it, a quarter, 40%, is shipped to developing countries where it's resold at a very, very affordable price to people there. And this is not it's not completely good and it's not completely bad. It's good because entrepreneurs are buying this clothing and reselling it, hopefully at a profit, not
Yeah.
always. And it does provide some jobs and economic opportunity. It's a huge part of the economy, especially in a place like Ghana or Mozambique. Um, However, one of the problems is that, according to research by the OR Foundation, um, in one of the biggest markets, secondhand markets in Ghana, for example, um, about 40% of what they buy and then what they buy to resell is just completely worthless, and they send it to the landfill. And the problem
That's
with
a
that
lot.
is that it's
Yeah.
it's a lot. And
Yeah.
there's
40%
so
is
much
huge.
clothing,
Yeah.
yeah, that flows into there. And you've been to Ghana, like did you see this? I haven't been to Ghana. I would really like to go. Have you seen some of this?
I have, traveling on the Peace Boat, we travel around the world for 3 months. We visit about 20 different countries. And, so many ports that you see as you're traveling really have major pollution issues, as you can imagine. But in Ghana, I spent about 1 month there, and it was some of the worst pollution I had ever seen in any other place. And like you said, a lot of it is plastic pollution, but a lot of it is also donations of clothing that people send with, the purpose in mind to make a positive difference by donating their clothes, but they don't actually end
Mhm.
up really helping people. So it really makes a
Yeah.
difference. You have to know what are the needs and where are the places that, can actually take those donations.
Yeah. And so people are always saying like, Alden, where do I donate? I was just being interviewed yesterday by someone who said like, where do we donate our clothes so that we know they go to an ethical use? And my answer is, once they're in the system, like you don't really have control over it. It all kind of flows to the same place. So the solution is, as as I always say, is to think systematically. And so when there are some amazing creative designers in Ghana and elsewhere, that, especially Ghana though, who are taking some of this clothing waste and they're upcycling it into these really bespoke, gorgeous, um, really designs. And can you still hear me? Because I think my thing's frozen. But um, so eco cult where I rounded up a lot. It must have been 30 Black-owned brands that are ethically made in Africa, and a big portion of them were from Ghana and were upcycling. And Ghana has a really beautiful tradition of bespoke tailoring. Like you go, you get something made just for you. Incredibly talented tailors there, and that's one wonderful solution. Another solution um, would be to take a lot of these pilot projects that are currently in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Europe around recycling plastic waste into textiles and recycling textiles into textiles, and building these when the commercial factories, because this is all very in its nascent stages, when they're ready to scale up to a full-size commercial facility that can really do a lot of weight, like really process a lot of this and turn waste into fabric that can be used in fashion, I really hope that they start situating these places and building these places in the countries that are dealing with fashion waste and with plastic pollution the most. Because I mean, it would just be like a win-win-win, right? Like all this 40% of
Absolutely.
clothing that is waste as it arrives to Ghana could be like immediately sold or dropped off at these factories. It wouldn't be shipped all the way around the world like it is now. It would provide jobs. It would just be like a wonderful thing. I don't know if that is in the works, but like if you know someone who works at one of these companies, please pass this information along. I should just email them. I think I have emails with them and just say like, please do this in places that need it, like Guatemala, which has a textile industry, like Ghana, because it would just be like a beautiful sort of elegant solution, I think.
Absolutely. Working with developing nations and also with so many talented designers that are sometimes, the fashion industry has such a positive impact that it can make. So I think making that global
Mm-hmm.
connection and really working with local designers is a way to go. Um, and speaking of that, tell us a little bit about, we've been talking about environmental justice and sustainability, and that really goes together with social justice and representation. And I mean, I'm in New York City right now in Brooklyn, and that is one of the hottest topics that we are working on right now. How do we, just really connect those topics and also to really put it at the forefront? So not only oceans and sustainability, but thinking about the interconnection of social justice and environment. What are some of the things that you've been able to highlight recently? I know you've been very active in promoting, for example, African American designers, and
Mm-hmm.
just tell us a little bit more about how people can make a difference that way as well.
Yeah, so going off of what I was just saying, like it is really important. So one of the things that I left for more than a year, as you know, and traveled with my husband Illich around the world. And one of the things that came out of that, which I know you totally identify with, is just having these personal connections with designers that are local to that are local and doing like really beautiful things and making fashion that is it sort of bridges between their culture and Western culture. So, for example, I met one Bangladeshi designer who makes makes items that are for the kind of professional Bangladeshi women who um, need to have something that's more conservative that they can wear to their jobs in Bangladesh, and then they can get on a plane and get off in London, and it's still appropriate for that. And like that, I think that's where the fashion industry is going. And so um, over the past year, I've really been thinking about how to support those kinds of designers who local designers who are trying to break into the market, into the United States market, into the European market to sell their things to consumers who have this really global mind to participate fashion economy. And I think that's what, like, sustainability is great if you're just thinking about climate change, but the other part of it is thinking about people. And I think that people really feel connected to the idea of sustainable fashion is not through just thinking about, like, if I buy, it's really fun to buy something and say like, oh, this was made from ocean plastic. It feels really
Absolutely.
nice. But I think the way people really connect to the idea of sustainable development through fashion is to think about it in a community oriented way. So who are the humans that I'm supporting? What is the culture that I am excited about learning more about? And I think that that's why, as someone saying that, um, you know, so like one of the last comments someone said is that this work needs to be done at a community level and a community scale. And I am absolutely about that because, I think it takes all things. Like I think it takes a company that's as large as H&M to invest into some of these scalable solutions, but we cannot forget about the designers who are hand upcycling and bringing this fresh perspective and creating this community around more sustainable fashion. So I just want to emphasize that, when you're thinking about who to support, like Adidas is one thing. They have had some issues recently with racial discrimination. So if you're thinking, oh man, like who do I support now? You know, there are so many Black-owned brands that are really showing the way to to really building a community around the human element of sustainable fashion. Because, you know, why do we care about cleaning up rivers? It's not necessarily because of the river, it's because of the people who live next to it and the fish that the fish that we're hoping can return to the river. So it's really a global community.
Absolutely. Well, before
Oh
we wrap
no,
up today, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us as part of this amazing series of events until July 8th, where we're doing this whole series this week. And is there any last message that you want listening today or for this kind of fashion for oceans and sustainability movement?
Yeah, I would say that if you really want to get involved in this fashion sustainability movement, I would say there's a few things that people can do. One is buy secondhand as much as you can, and buy from and find brands that you can really commit to. Like find brands that that you can trust. You can look on Good on You for trustworthy brands. You can look on EcoCult for trustworthy brands. Find brands that you trust and build your community in fashion that way, instead of, you know, running from collaboration to collaboration. Like build your community around sustainable fashion. And I think that you'll start to, you know, slow down your consumption, buy less, buy better. And I think that you'll find that that has sort of knock-on effects on the rest of your life in terms of your mental health. And it's not just about thinking about what's happening across the world, but thinking about the positive effects that it has on your life and the people around you as well.
Exactly. You know, everything is interconnected, and that's totally right. So, site, and we look forward to connecting more with you and promoting a true sustainable development through the fashion industry. Thank you so much.
So glad you were all here.
Yes, we'll do more. So practice makes perfect, and we're off to the next one. Ciao.
Ciao.